So good afternoon and welcome everyone, especially our new members. Each executive board lately, it seems we've been welcoming new members, and it's a great testament to the strength of our association that we continue to do so. Our finances play a large role in that strength, and I would like to thank each and every one of you and how you approach spending and budgeting these past few years. The pandemic has been a struggle for everyone, but we are indeed a union in every sense of the word. By working together, we've come through one of aviation's toughest periods with flying colors. Again, thank you for that. Speaking of budgeting, I'm proud to announce that our budget for 2023 is complete, and we are back on track, with our expected dues exceeding the levels seen in 2019. When I was first elected, I was greeted with a just enacted lower dues rate, which required new budgets all around. Then came the pandemic and all the adjustments every single one of us had to make. And finally this year, a little bit of normalcy. I'll provide a brief budget overview later today, but for those of you who wish to get more detailed look at the budget, we'll discuss it in a delegate committee too. For now, let's review the data. As you see here, ALPA has still registered a net income of $62.2 million while the pandemic was raging. That's about $15 million less than in 2020, but it's still a positive number for the circumstances. Both in 2020 and 2021, our income benefited greatly from the payroll protection plan, but we saw a minor increase in expenses in 2021 as the association started holding meetings and going about standard business. Now we'll look at the numbers year-to-date for 2022 through July 31st. We are currently operating at a nearly $14 million deficit, but a closer look tells you why. It's investments. As any of you who have been watching your 401ks knows, it's been a rough couple of quarters. Our dues income is trending back up to pre-pandemic levels and beyond, and while expenses have increased, that $34 million decrease in investment values is the primary cause for our current deficit. While our investments have fallen less than markets in general, due to our conservative investment strategies, they have fallen nonetheless. However, we remain in for the long term here, so we can certainly expect that to turn around. And no presentation from the VP of Finance will be complete without eye charts. On these next few, we'll look at month by month and collectively at our dues revenue and expenses, actual versus budgeted. The year 2021 is signified by the dotted line, one for our actual expenses or dues, depending on the chart, and one for budgeted. Similarly, 2022 year-to-date is shown with a solid line. The chart illustrates both budgeted versus actual for 2022 versus 2021 in the same chart. First, we see the monthly dues totals, actual versus budgeted. Note that our 2022 dues, there in green, are both higher than last year and higher than budgeted, both a positive sign. This slide then shows cumulative totals of our dues over the course of the year. As you can see, our budgeted dues this year are very close to our actual dues from last year, as again, we use known contracts and more sophisticated metrics to create our budgets. Our actual dues are currently trending higher than budgeted, most likely due to summer flying. This slide compares our monthly expenses, both actual and budgeted. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen an increase in expenses this year as the industry has quickly changed and ALPA services to our pilots has responded. We're back to seeing regular flight pay loss, in-person meetings, and ALPA training events throughout the calendar. Here we see the year-to-date expenses, and you can see by the green line above the yellow line, the accumulation of expenses over the budget, which remains relatively small. As you can see, a constant gap for 2021 as well, when our expenses regularly fell below budget. Here's a good look at the trip we've taken over the past 4 years. In order, you see budgeted dues, budgeted expenses, and actual expenses for 2019, 2020, 21, and the year to date of 2022. I highlighted most of these important areas in the spring executive board, but it bears a brief repeat to show that our dues remain relatively strong throughout, due to large in part to the CARES Act, while other variables moved up and down. As I already mentioned, we have actual dues already outpacing budget for 2022 year to date, with expenses slightly above as well. Moving on to other areas. The Operating Contingency Fund, the OCF, continues its upward growth. Having a fund like this available is truly one of the benefits of joining our association. So kudos to everyone for their work in making sure this important resource remains available when needed. Now, we turn to the Major Contingency Fund, the MCF. As you can see here, the MCF has slipped slightly in the past year, but that's not unexpected, excuse me. Part of it is due to our investments, and part of it is due to our newly implemented usage. As you're hopefully aware, we have a new program funded by the MCF that provides a grant to any and every MEC after finalizing new collective bargaining agreements. This is an automatic grant provided monthly for a full year to assist in the implementation process. Now, typically you don't get this kind of money with no strings attached with a guy with an Italian last name. But in this case, we feel that providing funds to get a new contract implemented properly is definitely worth it. Even if the funds are unused at the end of 12 months, they still belong to your MEC. Too often, our pilot groups were spending all their money on negotiations. And in fact, as we all know, the use of MCF in the final stages of negotiations, it is mandatory that you spend all your MEC money first. But that resulted in empty coffers when it came to time to implement the contract and the grievance that often come with any new contract. I know you all find it hard to believe, but management doesn't always remember the details of a contract even weeks after signing the new deal. With these grants, our MECs can make sure that hard-earned contract improvements get implemented in a timely fashion for your members. And as union leaders, you can implement a new contract without sacrificing other priorities, such as training new representatives and volunteers. A few of you have already made use of this fund, shown on this slide, with many more to come, given the amount of pilot groups that are in some sort of negotiations right now. Those of you who have used it have had positive things to say about it, one even calling it a game changer. I hope the same holds true for your MEC when it's your turn. To learn more, you can read in the Airline Pilot Magazine article about this program in this September issue. For those worried about that this will drag the MCF balance down, we've addressed that as well. For every dollar that goes out each year in this new grant, $2 will be budgeted to the MCF to replenish the funds. Moving on to the budget. Here you see the 2023 budget approved by the Executive Council. Again, we'll take a closer look at this in Delegate Committee 2, but here are the basics. The total dues budgeted income is $233 million, which truly is back on track for where we were pre-pandemic. We are still budgeting conservatively. We can still acknowledge the expected growth and improvement. This pie chart here is broken up according to the percentages by our bylaws, with the amounts on the right taken off the top before the remaining total is divided amongst the MECs, the Administrative Support Account, OCF, and the LECs. Now let's shift gears a little bit to Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk is an essential element of ALPA's risk management program, acting as a safety net to protect association resources from litigation exposure. Established in 1991, Kitty Hawk insurance and reinsurance coverage for the association related to fiduciary obligations for ALPA benefit plans. They also provide professional services, employment practices, and help address duty of fair representation matters. Association officials, and with myself included, met with our reinsurers this summer to discuss our next renewal period. For the first time in many years, at the time, we reported that we had 0 new cases noticed by ALPA. That noticed by ALPA is a lawyer term that I've kind of learned over the past 4 years, so thanks, Marcus. And this is a testament to the value of our merger policy and the efforts our legal department makes to prepare our MEC and LEC reps to do their jobs. I'm pleased to report at the present time, all efforts appear to have paid off, as we have heard in the past few days that our premiums will likely remain stable for the next year. Everyone in the association working together made all these positive steps possible. ALPA is moving forward responsibly, and I want to once again highlight our outstanding staff who I have the honor to work with every single day. Everyone from the top on down have dedicated themselves to ALPA and to making sure our finances remain in the best place possible. They have all been valuable allies, played an important role in keeping the association stable during the pandemic and beyond. It's been a tough few years for everyone, but I think we can safely say we're on the backside of it, and now smoother skies lie ahead. We're seeing strong new contracts for many of our MECs, less financial risk for the association, an increasing budget, not to mention more services to our line pilots. Thanks to all of you. This is a great time to be at ALPA, and I look forward to the continued growth in the future. Before I wrap up, I'd like to take a moment to, to acknowledge the day. You know, last night when I was winding down and I saw my uniform hanging, it hit me that in the morning I was going to have the privilege of honoring my friends and colleagues who we lost 21 years ago. I also thought how proud I am of ALPA and how we've truly not forgotten them. Whether it's the beautiful memorial garden we created, then took the time and effort to bring over to Valor Park, or the moving ceremony we have in that garden every year, but also the how relentless we are in closing the loop on secondary barriers. Over the past 4 years, I've witnessed firsthand how we never let an opportunity go by with a legislator without reminding them that we're still waiting. Around this time of year, we often hear never forget, but sadly, 21 years later, sometimes those words ring hollow. As elected officers, we rarely have an opportunity to reflect on our work. But today, please take a moment to not only think about those who we've lost, but also the reasons each and every one of you have stepped up to do this work with a union that truly strives every day to make lives better and safer. Thank you for your ongoing service to ALPA. Have a good day.